protection advocate, and I also call for protection of environment, and I follow you and I learn from you all.
Mustafa Fouda, former director of nature conservation and currently now minister advisor on biodiversity.
Ahmed Jawad, I'm a diplomat and I'm a nature lover.
I'm really an ornithologist.
My name is Bernard. I'm working in corporate sustainability and arrived here in April to work for a German organization, GIZ.
I'm Maike. I'm Bernard's wife. We arrived in April, and I worked in nature conservation in Namibia before, in community-based natural resource management, and somehow I got involved in, or just met, or came across nature conservation in Egypt and wanted to see what they do. And so I saw today there's a meeting. That's how I ended up.
I'm Dominique. I'm a member of Nature Conservation Egypt.
I'm Mary Galley, just an old Egypt resident who
I'm Richard Hoth. What pays the bills is teaching at the American University, but I also write extensively on Egyptian, regional and African wildlife and natural history.
Hi, my name is Farid Hosni. I'm a veterinarian. I'm a nature lover.
I'm Gabriel Mikhail. I'm a wildlife author and eco-architect.
Noor from Nature Conservation Egypt.
I am Khadim Mujir, environmental and wildlife artist.
Wildlife in Egypt. The only reason I'm speaking English is that most of us, I'm sure, can communicate now in English. However, if anything needs to be communicated in Arabic, please let's go ahead. الموضوع ممكن يبقى مرن. Should we? أفندم؟
يعني مرن.
يعني إحنا ممكن flexible. Mix and mash everything. If you don't mind, I'll be taking meeting minutes so that we can circulate them between us later. If we can have just 3 minutes, if we can have a brainstorming session for a potential agenda of different separate topics to begin discussing, detailed topics, just 3 minutes, key topics that you think we should address one by one. Any ideas?
Well, let us start with the most important one. We are dealing with the wildlife hunting, right?
Yes.
So are we going to talk about a specific group or like gazelle, ibex or dolphins or what? We are here to discuss a very specific issue, which is wildlife hunting. It's wide in terms of different categories and different animals, and this is a very serious matter.
I would propose a broader range that, yes, the hunting is our concern, but also the authority concerned. This is what I propose needs to be addressed. We must have a proper functioning authority to deal with this issue, with the issue of wildlife. Under it, hunting, not hunting, illegal, anything. We want the authority to address and to be responsible for anything happening all over Egypt concerning wildlife.
We had a meeting with the Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Mohammed Al-Garhi, and he gave a few proposals for the protection and just concerning this matter. I'd like to follow up on what's going on and in this issue, if we can press any harder in the same direction. The written proposals that I was presented, and I've got a copy that we can discuss.
And what we reached during this meeting about the Wildlife Authority, they've got no resources, they're doing nothing. They claim that the Ministry, the Egyptian Environmental Affairs Agency, are the ones who put the laws, okay, but they cannot apply the laws, and we have got no resources and they can do nothing. This is the conclusion.
Great. So basically, the topic of the political and legal infrastructure pertaining to wildlife.
يا عمرو
ايوه يا فندم.
معاك واحد اسمه مصطفى فودة.
اهلا دكتور.
طيب عشان بس اتكلم بالانجليزي علشان في مجموعة من الأخوة هنا أجانب ألمان وجنسيات مختلفة، عشان بس يبقى إيه بدل ما نقعد نترجم، وخاصة إنك أنت يعني كلامك كبير أوي أوي.
حاضر.
ماشي.
هحاول استعمل ألفاظ مش مجعلصة وهتكلم بالإنجليزي. First, I would like to apologize for not being to attend today. My name is Amr Ali. I'm the Managing Director of HEPCA, the Hungarian Environmental Protection and Conservation Association in the Red Sea. Unfortunately, we could not attend this meeting because we have a commission from the Shura Council here discussing again the concessions that should be given within national park areas in the Red Sea to the tourism development, so we have to attend the meeting. Very briefly, I don't want to waste any of your time, valuable time. Just briefly, I told my point of view yesterday to Dina, and I thank Noor for the invitation and Dina for being behind this issue. Number one, HEPCA's point of view or stand concerning the wildlife violations in the Red Sea, that the CITES Commission and anything to do with the wildlife is in the wrong place right now. We should not waste our efforts trying to rectify anything as long as these commissions are within the Ministry of Agriculture. It's a massive waste of time. We've seen breaching for all the laws and going around the laws and regulations by CITES officials in Cairo for the past 10 years. We've seen massive violations and valuable wildlife leaving and trafficking, leaving Cairo airport, Safaga port, and the only ones who were able to stop it were national parks, where the national parks are located, with the very limited capabilities they have right now. I move to the direction of putting the pressure, whether on CITES or the Minister of Agriculture or whatever the direction is, to put these commissions under WEAA, under the protected areas, and not under a separate commission that goes under the Ministry of Agriculture. They're not aware of our issues. I will take the goodwill and I will say that they're not aware of our issues. Trafficking is outside national park boundaries, and this is the problem. These commissions have to go under the Ministry of Environment. This is the legal framework that we have to work on. Without this legal framework, we will be wasting time. Things will go to court and we will lose, because nobody stands from the government against these violations in the Egyptian courts, because they do not care. As long as it is under the Ministry of Agriculture, things will not change. I don't want to waste my time and intrude more than that. We are 100%, HEPCA is 100% supporting to the issue, and we will give whatever is required from us, and we were honored to work with everybody who's in the room today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Am.
Okay. UNESCO, they were very keen on other things like the biosphere reserves, and they helped to establish at the time both Umayyad and Wadi Alaq. So they were, I would say, in terms of authorities, according to who's doing what, before 1983, most of these people were working in a fragmented way, not, maybe under the leadership of our late Professor Sass, things were going very, very smoothly, but we didn't have major problems at the time. But once we had that law for 102 for 1983 regarding the natural border trades, Ministry of Environment became the only authority in Egypt that they deal with all wildlife at large. That means that if you go to law 4 for 1994, it was very, very specific. Article 727 and Article 28, that they said it is prohibited to do blah, 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 from the law. And at the time they had a list of some of the species that were actually mentioned in some of the convention, like CITES, whatever, etc. When I came over to be in charge of nature conservation in Egypt, some of the issues have to be done. And they were not easy to be dealt with. I mean, one of them was the Egyptian Wildlife Service. I tried to remove, or to transfer wildlife service into nature conservation. At the time, there was incredible resistance from Ministry of Agriculture for personal reason, if I could say that, not for national reason. They thought that being the senator, I mean, they signed the convention at the time, and they didn't want to leave it because they had the animal committee, they have plant committee, they have whatever, etc. And to tell you the truth, it was a major job, that not easy, and we didn't have enough resources. At the time, they had some resources available at Cairo Airport, for example, and they have some resources in different places as well, not only in Cairo Zoo and things like that. So, to answer the questions very, very clearly, based on that historical ground, Ministry of Environment, they are in charge of CBD, that they deal with anything dealing with biodiversity at large. Ministry of Environment in charge of Ramsar Convention, which deal with anything related to wetlands to a great extent. The same thing applies for CMS, Convention on Migratory Species, which is based on Bonn. Until this moment, we are not the one that in charge of CITES. It's still at the Ministry of Agriculture, where they are the focal point. But we work with them. We provide them with some assistance. I didn't attend most of the COPs, Conference of the Parties, for a long time. But when they have trouble, they ask me to help or whatever, etc. So I went to Qatar.
You save them.
There was a long time that the Egypt membership in that convention was at stake, and there was some talk that. Actually, membership of Egypt, Egyptian authority, whatever. Anyway, there were some problems, and at the time I was not in Egypt, I was in Oman, and I did the best I can to rescue as much as I can through good contacts with people. And then we, according to the convention, that you must have an authority that they deal with the issue. So we help them to have a legislation, but not a law. At that time, we found, at that time, I told them that our way of how to look at legislation in Egypt is different from other countries. You can have a legislation by a presidential decree, or by a prime minister decree, or by a minister decree, or even the parliament, whatever, but depending on the time itself, at that time, Dr. Yusuf Ali was deputy prime minister, and then he issued a decree for formulating the committees that are dealing with CITES at that time. So, from practical point of view, it was not an easy for me when I started to be able to transfer all of these resources because they want to, there is many complications at the time, but maybe it is a time now. But before we think about what Amr said now, that it should be part of the Ministry of Environment, we have to see whether nature conservation at this time are capable of dealing with all of the issues related to CITES or not. Because CITES is a very complicated convention. It's different from any other convention like CBD. When you go there, you have a wise people, you have scientists that they deal with the issues at whatever. But when you go to CITES, the first thing that you could have is some kind of illusion. You lose sense of time and space because you are not dealing with science. You are dealing with politics, you are dealing with commerce, you are dealing with many things. After all, it is the second largest trade on earth.
After drug trade, it's the second.
What?
After drugs trade, it's the second illegal trade in wildlife.
Well, even drug, whatever, I mean, it's after military.
After military, the second is the wildlife trade?
It is the second largest trade on earth. I mean, when I was faced with this situation a long time ago, I said, does it include drugs? Does it include hash? I told you, yes, we have many species or whatever is there. Does it include even caviar, even small seahorse, whatever? When you think about the species that are already included in CITES, you'll never believe it. We are talking about something like 29,000 species of plants and something like 5,000 species of animals.
And Dr. Foda, can I just clarify something?
Yeah.
If illegal hunting is taking place for a species that is under CITES, listed under CITES, then that falls under the auspices of the Ministry of Agriculture.
Absolutely.
If it is a species that is not listed by CITES, but perhaps protected by any of the other conventions or under Egyptian law, then that is then under the responsibility of the Ministry of Environment.
No. The second thing, if not under CITES and it falls under Egyptian laws, I'm sorry, the Ministry of Environment, EEAA, they say it's not our responsibility. And it's the...
Whatever they say, they don't understand the situation. But let me clarify things from CITES point of view, because not many people understand what's going on CITES. CITES in a very, very simple way. You have Appendix 1, which is, these are endangered species, you are not allowed at all to have any kind of trade. The maximum thing you can do, a little bit of research, a little bit of captive breeding, whatever, to enhance the species itself. And then you have Appendix 2, that you are allowed to have a trade condition, that you have a quota, you inform them, and then you have the process where you have a if you want to import things, you must have a certificate of origin, and then you have whatever, etc. And then Appendix 3, it depends on the country itself, whether they think that it is okay in terms of abundance, then whatever, they can deal with that. But if some of the species in Appendix 3 is exposed or threatened or whatever, they have the right to transfer it from Appendix 3 to Appendix 1. And as I said, it is very complicated because when we deal with 35,000 species of plants and animals, who will know all of this? I mean, we tried, for example, to train some of these people, at least on the main species that you deal with, especially when it comes to birds, for example. There were a time when people can export things by saying this is a pigeon, for example, and turn out to be a falcon. I mean, or whatever. We have all of this fun for several years, and I have to admit, not only CITES convention, but that they did the best they can to provide capacity building to Egyptians at the time for several years, and then you have NGOs like IFO.
يعني ربنا يخليك دكتور فوده. Please. And what is the description of statistics of what is endangered or not in Egypt? There is no surveys done. What is the Wildlife Authority of Egypt concerned of? The head of the Central Managerial Authority of CITES is also the head of Central Zoos and Wildlife. Define what is the job description of this unit.
And Mordo, if I can take this question further, عشان this is the biggest issue that we have now, is to understand the legal framework in which the hunting is involved and wildlife is involved. فدلوقتي احنا أكبر مشكلة عندنا إن احنا نفهم الوضع القانوني، إيه الإطار القانوني للحياة البرية في مصر. يعني هل فعلا زي ما هم دلوقتي بيقولوا بيفرقوا بين السبيسيز اللي نازله تحت السايتيز والسبيسيز الثانيه تحت وزاره البيئه او جهاز شؤون البيئه، ولا يعني فعلا احنا مش فاهمين الوضع القانوني يعني؟
Well, as I said very clearly, if you bring law, they will whatever. You have very clear articles by law, right? But whatever is happening in wildlife service in Egypt, as I said, the establishment is based on a ministerial decree, which means that by law, but it means that Egyptian environmental law is overriding from legal point of view, overriding whatever is happening in a place like Cairo Zoo or whatever.
Dr. Fodem, still the problem is not clear. What is the wildlife unit doing? The wildlife unit is the one authorized to deal with statistics, and they provide, they're the ones who go to the CITES official meetings and say, these are the statistics of Egypt, this can be endangered, this is threatened, this is not. How come these people who know nothing and there's no contact number available or anywhere to contact them or know anything about the law, and they don't even answer and they don't know what's threatened and what is allowed and what is not? It's not a matter of CITES. What is the functioning of this unit?
Let me do it in a proper way. Number one, you have to, as I said, from legal point of view, as far as I understand the law, it is the Ministry of Environment.
Who in the Ministry of Environment?
And the agency is Nature Conservation.
I'm sorry, when
Just
I
a second, just a second, because this is the law, all right? But when it goes to a place like Wildlife Service, because it is established at Cairo Zoo, those people, according to the way how the Ministry of Agriculture is organized and structured, whatever, etc., it was at the time, because Cairo Zoo
of the existing laws or working around it.
Okay, just to add on to this point, Gabby rightfully mentioned that there were specific people who were arrested at several points, arrested with after they had hunted specific things, specifically gazelles and things, and so they were arrested. What is the legal basis for this arrest that can be re-implemented with other cases, please?
Remember when you released like 30 falcons in Hurghada or 40 hurricanes? Okay, this is the mechanisms that are working. Okay, so let's not talk about CITES now.
Let us be practical while we are here. Otherwise, the discussion can spread different things. We are here to be able to see what can we do, because this is a serious situation. So I would like just to remind you that things like that happen all the time. It's just, it fluctuates from year to year depending on the situation, whatever. From my point of view, if you want something to be done, you must have a person that he can activate things, someone who's a visionary, whatever, etc. And in my case, I call myself, I was very, very lucky, because if you have a problem, I don't go and I say according to the law, whatever, and I forget about it. I communicate with everybody, whether they are military, whether they are coastal, whether whatever, etc. I'm doing this, I have to hide things even from my minister. Not to tell anybody, to be able to make the follow-up, whether when they get someone to report that that prince is coming, for example, for hunting, like what we did in Sharm el-Sheikh, for example. There were 40 falcons, and the same thing happened for whatever, and we follow these people even when they come to Egypt, whatever, and we were able to stop many of this slaughtering coming from those people from outside Egypt, in a way that I have to intervene with some princes that we have to take the weapons from them, and then we handed them when they leave, for example. Or when they say we are not going to hunt here, we are going as a transit because we are going to hunt in Algeria or Libya, whatever. We said fine, that's great. We take their guns and then we give it to them when they leave Egypt. I mean, I use all different kind of things. Legislation never stopped me from doing whatever I think was right at the time. Sometimes I applied the national legislation. Sometimes outside protected areas I apply international conventions. And then when I got lost, I got very good lawyers that we can go to the civil laws in Egypt that can tell you a lot of interesting things that you can whatever.
Who is Dr.
So just a second. I'm giving this information because sometimes if you don't have the right people to be able to do something, the whole process, whatever. So we were able to stop those people coming from Aswan to Gabal Elba, and we stopped what happened in Gabal Elba for a long time. At the same time, we were able to stop these Arabs coming through Sinai or even to and the Red Sea, especially in Safaga and others, whatever. And this. I used, as I said, military people. Sometimes I use even police to a great extent. I use even governors, whatever. But I have to admit, at the time, people didn't understand why you are doing this. Governors, for example, they gave themselves authority to give permit for some Arabs when they come. And then if you say this is allowed or not, then problems started. But I remind you that there was a time when some people from our rangers, they said very clear to these people, even if you have a permit signed by me, they will not take it. If I remember Muhammad Gad, for example, when they said they have a permit signed by the minister, whatever, even if Mustafa Fouda signed it, would not allow, and then we're able to stop a lot of this. Some people were able to put a lot of pressure on me at the time, many times, whether from presidential palace, from legal, whatever. But that's what I mean. You need a sham that actually can take over and can do things. Nowadays, the problem is, if you phone anyone, no one will answer because they don't have information and they don't have the wealth. So you need to create some kind of pressure, public pressure on the government, whether they are Ministry of Agriculture, whether they are Ministry of Environment, in a way, whatever. This is number one. Number two, you have to be careful. The pressure itself is not guaranteed that it will solve problems at a specific time. For example, nowadays, what's happening in Egypt after 25th of January, people are killing each other. People will not listen to you as such. And you were able to even to take that issue to the highest level, to the president, to the prime minister. I mean, you remember what happened in a place like Wadi Rayyan, for example. In Wadi Rayyan, as much as 9,000 acres were taken from the protected area. 9,000 acres by only a small group of people. If you go to Sinai, whatever, etc., so the current situation, if you are not tactful, if you are not very careful, whatever. I mean, for example, only in my office yesterday, there is something that came from IUCN. The Director General of IUCN sending a letter to the minister about the bird hunting. That thing that happened a few months ago, when the Germans made the articles, whatever, etc. Now, how the government responded? They didn't respond. Either because the minister is so busy with too many important things that they think this matter, or he doesn't think that this should take a priority, or his people that he's relying on, they are providing him with lies, or they are not competent.
So if I may provide a correction just on this specific point, because just to give you a recap on this issue that we're discussing. German journalists several months ago had documented hundreds of kilometers of nets being stretched across the northern Mediterranean coast of Egypt. These nets are the ones that are annually put up for the quail hunting season. Formerly in the past, or supposedly, there are regulations on how to put up these nets and how to maintain them and the distance and things of the sort. And there are permits actually that are issued to set up these nets. These permits come from the Coast Guard intelligence offices on the different Mediterranean provinces. However, these regulations have not been implemented properly, and in turn, these nets are being kept up for months and months on end, and they're not specifically catching quail. They're catching everything, and in the process, this campaign had been used by NABU, which is the BirdLife partner in Germany, and they actually came back to us at NCE to double check, to confirm this information, and sadly we had to confirm this information because in fact this is true, and we had seen it in our own scouting mission earlier this year. And when the minister had gone to Germany, he was questioned by the German journalists and things of the sort, and as a response, there has been coordination between NCE, as in Nature Conservation Egypt, and the nature conservation sector of the WEAA, with orders from the minister himself. He personally gave this a priority to investigate this information, and as a result, as a potential result of our meeting today, as well as my meetings that are going to start taking place in Canada for the BirdLife International World Congress starting in a couple of days, as a result of all of these things, we're going to plan for future meetings, hopefully in coordination with the ministry. But the minister is aware, and he will give this a priority.
Yeah, there is investigation, whatever. This doesn't mean that didn't stop, or it's not going to stop what's happening, you know. I mean, the whole issue about quails, we have to be very practical. I read the articles, whatever, etc. I wouldn't say they exaggerated, but this is a cultural issue, not only in Egypt, but the whole Mediterranean. If you go to Libya, if you go to Tunis, whatever, etc. And all what you need this kind, you need to regulate it based on scientific rather than anything else. Now, having said that, I have to say very, very clear. When I saw these things that Dina sent or whatever the video, I was completely shocked. But when I try to see what's happening in other places that they are facing similar situation in Egypt, like Libya, for example, you see how many...
بس ليبيا دلوقتي في civil war وغيره بقى and having this happening in Libya does not give us
excuse. But we have serious problem, as I say. I'm not saying we are better, whatever.
مصر مش ليبيا, exactly, and this is not
two wrongs to make a right.
No, you didn't get the point I'm raising now. Okay, I will not show it to you. From my experience, there was a time when killing in a place like Gabal Elba was serious. And Dr. Kassas took incredible initiatives. He called to everybody, and even he called to Prince Philip and whatever, etc. And at the time, I was so worried that most wildlife in Elba would be gone. But inside me, internally, I said, even if it is a serious situation in a place like Gabal Elba in Egypt, at least we still have a good stock of wildlife in the other Elba, that means that in Sudan. There was a time when things in Sudan were much better than now. The situation is different now. The situation in Libya is very hard because they give permit to everybody, and fortunately most of the stock migrated to our areas, because we didn't have borders, whatever. These few photographs which I'm showing you in Libya, sometimes when there's a pressure, I'm not saying the reason or civil war, whatever, at least some of them can come to our area, especially when you think about the number of ibex or number of gazelle or whatever, etc. So again, let us focus. What can we do for that? We have very specific cases in Egypt that people were so clear that they talk. We have them on videos, and we have cases that you can take these people into even court, right? And then you need to know what can you do. Are you going to take these people to court, for example? Are you going to look at the minister and put pressure on him in a way that he can create things like Egyptian wildlife service to be transferred to whatever? And if this is a case,